Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some exciting but expected news coming out of this Nebraska program as true freshman quarterback Dylan Raiola officially named the starting quarterback for this Nebraska program heading into the 2024 season. Now, the Nebraska fans who've been rocking with the boys really the last couple of weeks and months know that Dylan Raiola has been a guy that I've been extremely excited for going back to his days as a sophomore in high school, throwing for over 3,000 yards in the state of Texas, a guy that I've watched play a lot of football going back to his high school days. And when he committed to Nebraska, you kind of just knew he'd be that difference maker at the quarterback position that Nebraska has been looking for. And I think what made Dylan Raiola such an exciting commitment for Nebraska is you knew he had year one potential. There are a lot of quarterbacks that commit to schools coming out of high school that, are really talented, but you also might need a year or two to become college football quarterback. So we kind of said this going back to when Dylan Raiola committed to Nebraska and flipped his commitment. This kid's ready to play early. He has been born with the football in his hand, has been around the sport of football really since he's been able to walk, obviously, with the family tree. And then you go to the high school film and say, all right, his senior year in the highest classification in the state of Georgia, threw for 34 touchdowns, only one interception, played in like this pro style offense that he was taking snaps under center, playing with 12 personnel. This kid has been ready, not only physically, but mentally to be a starting quarterback as a true freshman. I think that's what excites me the most about Dylan Raiola. I want to talk about a few different things. One, what to expect from this Nebraska offense with the true freshman at the helm. And I think more importantly, why we think Dylan Raiola can have year one success for this Nebraska program. Now, before we do, and as always, would love to hear from the Nebraska fans. My favorite part about talking Nebraska ball is just talking with you guys in the comments section. The amount of support y'all have shown the boys over the last couple of weeks and months, it's been amazing. We appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's talk about Dylan Raiola earning this quarterback one spot, not just because he's an elite talent, but because he's an elite leader. I mean, ever since this kid committed to Nebraska, stepped foot on campus, you read the spring practice notes, you read the summer workout notes, you read the fall camp notes. This kid has just taken command of this Nebraska offense, really of this Nebraska team. And that is one of the most important things you talk about when you're going to start a true freshman quarterback. They got to be a little bit special as a leader. And Dylan Raiola is that kind of guy, right? Taking his offensive line out to dinner, taking his wide receivers down to Texas and kind of doing an off-season camp with them. Dylan Raiola has done all of those intangible stuff that you want of your starting quarterback. And then I think, secondly, this kid has been ready to play college football for a very long time. Obviously, he's played a ton of high school football, has been around this sport for an extremely long time. But I think most importantly, he takes care of the football. You go back to his days at Buford as a senior, 34 touchdowns to only one interception. Those are the things that keep freshmen off the field early at the college football level, right? The turnovers, being able to know what you're supposed to be doing, where to be looking, how to process. Dylan Raiola can do all of those things at a much higher level than a lot of other true freshman quarterbacks who are extremely talented but need to take some of those steps. And Dylan Raiola has been ready. I think the most important conversation is, all right, now what does this offense look like with Dylan Raiola at the helm? I think what you're most excited about is having a deeper third element of this passing attack, something that just was non-existent for this Nebraska passing attack last year. Obviously, the Nebraska passing attack struggled massively, not only quarterback play, but wide receiver play as well. But I think one of the biggest problems with this Nebraska offense, it was so condensed, right? Nebraska didn't have quarterbacks, didn't have wide receivers that really could threaten opposing defenses attacking the deeper third. I think the thing that Dylan Raiola brings the most to this Nebraska offense is that deeper third presence. You look at Dylan Raiola, what does he do best as a football player, as a quarterback, as a passer of the football? He pushes the ball down the field. There's probably not a freshman quarterback in the country that accesses the deeper third better than Dylan Raiola. Obviously can throw it a mile, but he's also extremely accurate. He knows how to layer his footballs. You go back to some of the problems we saw with this Nebraska offense. A lot of it had to do with just this Nebraska offense being so condensed, really being only able to operate within 10 to 15 yards from the line of scrimmage. You talk about different ways that this can help, how Dylan Raiola can help this Nebraska offense, not only hitting more explosive plays, which is something Nebraska needs to do a better job of in the 2024 season, but I think more importantly, with Dylan Raiola at quarterback, And with guys like Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor who can access the deeper third, all of a sudden defenses that are going to be playing this Nebraska program, they have to respect that. They have to leave their safeties a little bit more in that deeper third area, which is going to help the Nebraska offense not only running the football, but accessing the short intermediate parts of the football field. More space is going to get created. And you go back to last year, how many times did we see Nebraska, play on the offensive side of the football, seeing 7-8-man boxes? And Nebraska could do nothing to punish teams that decided to load boxes because they couldn't access that deeper third. I think the number one thing that Dylan Raiola is going to bring to this Nebraska offense is that element that, hey, if you want to put 7 guys in the box and leave 1 safety high, we are going to make you pay for it, attacking the deeper third, which Nebraska just couldn't do in the 2023 season. That's probably what I'm most excited for. But you talk about the accuracy, just the routine throws that Dylan Raiola can make. That's another thing that he brings to the table. I mean, there's so many times last year, whether it was Jeff Sims, whether it was Chuba, those routine throws that should be catch and throws, or throw and catches, I should say, they just weren't routine for this Nebraska offense. You look at Dylan Raiola, even going back to his high school days, those throws are routine for him. I mean, he's hitting guys in stride. He's getting them the football early so they can operate after the catch. Those type of things that seem so hard for this Nebraska offense in the 2023 season are going to be so much easier with the arm talent that you have with Dylan Raiola. And I think we got to see a little bit of it during that spring game where you'll see some, Iowa fans or Colorado fans get up there and say Dylan Raiola didn't play very good in the spring game. That was one of the most impressive true freshman quarterback showings in a spring game that I've ever seen. I mean, Dylan Raiola should have been going to a high school prom, and he was, taking the field and making some extremely impressive throws, not putting the ball in harm's way, looking like a quarterback that's been at the collegiate level for multiple years. That's the type of quarterback you're getting with Dylan Raiola. And I think the last 2 conversations are, one, what does Nebraska need to do to have success with Dylan Raiola? I would start with a very good run game. The best way you can make a true freshman quarterback more comfortable is getting a strong run game, being able to work play action, staying out of those 3rd and long situations. You look at Dylan Raiola and say, hey, you're a very talented quarterback. We all know that. There was a reason he was a top 10 kid nationally in the country. That being said, you're also still a true freshman. We want to put you in obvious and really easy situations. We don't want to be in those 3rd and 9 situations where teams are knowing you're throwing the football. They're dialing up exotic blitzes. The best thing Nebraska can do, and I think what we have a lot of confidence in, is run the football effectively. Keep this Nebraska offense on schedule. Avoid Dylan Raiola being in those 3rd and long situations where those are just not winning positions for young quarterbacks. And I think secondly, and probably the biggest question now is in pass protection. I've been very vocal. I think the 4 offensive linemen Nebraska has going from the right tackle to the left guard, I think that's going to be really good. Obviously, you have that big question at left tackle. If Turner Corcoran can just finally put it together and get healthy and play quality football at that left tackle spot, I think pass protection should be relatively good for Nebraska. Obviously, we'll be looking at that left tackle position relatively early in the 2024 season. I think the last thing you got to talk about is what's the role for Heinrich Harberg. I think there are a lot of different takes you can have. I think one take is, hey, Dylan Raiola is a really good quarterback. We want to keep him on the field as much as possible. I understand that point of thinking. Dylan Raiola is not going to be a guy that I'm banging the table to take off the field. That being said, I think Harberg does have, a certain athletic profile that you probably want to use on the offensive side of the football. And I think it could be beneficial for Dylan Raiola where you're going to give him some breaks to maybe come to the sideline, talk to Glenn Thomas or Matt Rhule or whoever needs to talk about, take a breath, have Heinrich Harberg kind of run a wildcat play, not for a possession, but maybe a play or two, and make defenses have to game plan for that kind of package and that look. We know Harberg is a guy that Nebraska wants to get on the football field. And I think, one, it's going to be hard for defenses to have to make sure they game plan for that kind of wrinkle. But I think more importantly, it gives the true freshman quarterback a little bit of time to catch his breath and kind of go talk to some coaches and, maybe have a little bit more command of the offense. I think secondly, in the red zone, you talk about Nebraska taking another step. It's scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And a guy like Heinrich Harberg can be a weapon in the red zone as well. I'm not going to argue for Heinrich Harberg to play tight end or to play fullback. I don't think that's what you should do, but I think there can be packages to utilize his specific athletic profile effectively in this Nebraska offense. But make no mistake about it, Dylan Raiola is the guy. And we expect this Nebraska offense to take a massive step in the right direction, not only because you have a really good quarterback now, but you also have some really, really good weapons on the outside. That was one of the things that kind of impressed me the most in the offseason is, look, I think a lot of the national media attention went to the quarterback play. Matt Rhule knew that the wide receivers, the offensive weapons were a problem too. He addressed that in the transfer portal. So Dylan Raiola is coming into a Nebraska offense where, we feel 4 out of 5 confident in the offensive line. We feel dang confident in the pass catches around Dylan Raiola. He's coming into a really good spot in this Nebraska offense. Obviously, opening up against UTEP week 1 should be a game where Dylan can build some confidence going into that night game week 2 against Colorado. Exciting news, I think expected news. But I think if there's any freshman quarterback that we kind of believe could be a year 1 starter, it was Dylan Raiola. We're going to see it in 2024. At the very least, we can get fired up for August 31st in a couple of weeks, or less than 2 weeks now. We'll cut it there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Would love to hear how you guys are feeling in the comment section. And if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.